Welcome to 70 System, I'm the DMG, and this video is about combat round and turn flow in the game of 70 System. Now you can go to the website and look under the download section to find one of these, which is part of the system reference guide. So that is going to basically help you to see all the different actions and things that are available in combat. You don't need to do all of this, you don't need to memorize it, it's just there in front of you. So if you're enjoying these videos and you'd like to financially support the making of this channel and this game, please check out patreon.com/70system and hit the like button. Of course, you can subscribe and click the bell to receive notification of when these videos come out. So, combat round and turn flow. So in the game of 70 System, we basically break down people's turns so each person must have a go. This is broken up into, in combat, is broken up into rounds. One round has multiple turns in it. So a round goes around all the players to the director, and each player gets a turn, and the director gets turn per monster or NPC that's involved. Before the first round of combat starts, there are actually three phases that you go through. You go through strategy, initiative, and surprise. Strategy, basically, you get to choose one of three options that are listed on this sheet. Now, the sheet may differ when you download it. There may be a new version of this. This is version 0.96. In the strategy phase, you can get one of three choices, which is strategy, ambush, or leadership. Strategy allows you to become the leader of the group. So the person who they decide they want to take leadership actions, etc., they can actually roll for the strategy, and that gives you benefits in the combat rounds that come afterwards. So you can choose from either a +1 bonus, or which is to your weapon, or a +1 to the combat score for the duration of the battle, or until you are neutralized. The difficulty is set by the initiative score of the enemy. So that determines the DL, or the difficulty level, and then you roll a dice against that. The second option is ambush. So you decide you're ambushing the opponents. Again, the difficulty level is the initiative score of the enemy. And if you succeed, you get a surprise round. So an additional surprise round. And if you have more ranks in combat, strategy, and ambush, you then get additional surprise rounds added on at the beginning of the combat. If you take leadership, you once again become a leader of the group, but one of your team member, your squad, your party, start in the zone. So if you look at the combat mechanics, one of the things in the zone gives you a higher combat score to begin with. Normally that happens if you have 3 successful attacks in a row, you become in the zone. So you have a flow state that you're in. So if you take this leadership option and you succeed against, again, the difficulty is the initiative of the enemy. You get to choose one of your party members basically begins in the zone. So that's the strategy portion. Then we have initiative. So initiative is not calculated every single combat. Initiative is basically calculated at the beginning of the game and at certain rest periods when someone may have gained ranks in some of the things that change the initiative score. So you're not able to constantly roll for initiative, and monsters and NPCs will have set initiative scores. So it's quick and easy everyone falls into place in the turn order. To calculate the initiative, you're taking a base score of 1, so everyone has 1, and then you're adding the ranks in the physical ability, and then you're adding ranks in the agility forte. That's if you've in physical, if you've gone up to the forte and you've added in agility, any ranks you have in that are then added in, plus ranks in the strategy expertise, which is an expertise of the mental ability, or ranks in the combat strategy forte, which is part of education. You ignore all inflations of these values, so none of the bonuses or any other those sort of things add into the score. So you'll total that up and you're going to get a score from 0 up to 7. So then everyone's initiative is looked at. Whatever number you have, you are in that turn order. If you have 2 like a monster and a person, or a person, two characters in the party that have the same number, they merely roll off with a d20. And that brings us to the surprise portion of the beginning of the round. So surprise is an additional turn where the party doing the surprise gets a full turn and the opponents get no turn as part of the round. You've been awarded a surprise round, you get to go around without a reaction from the opponents. If the monsters surprise you, they get around before you get to go. Of course, if you've used any of the strategy mechanisms and you've gained extra surprise rounds, these all happen in the beginning. So that's the beginning of the round. Then we move into each turn. So each turn is broken up into various different things, and we're going to talk about those now. So the first thing on every single turn is the emotion phase. So the character or the monster needs to check emotion under certain circumstances. These are triggered when you've reached 2, 4, or 6 injuries in the previous combat round. So if you took 3 injuries, that means you reached 2 and had another one added on top of that. So if those are all in the last round, then you have to do an emotion check. However, if you had 2 injuries in the last round when you did an emotion check and you've now reached 3, you don't do it again. You only do it when you reach 4. So it's at 2, 4, and 6. If you failed your emotion check in the previous turn, then you have to do another one. The difference is you gain an extra dice. So each turn that you've failed an emotion check, you gain 1 extra dice. If you were surprised in the preceding round, so in other words, if there was a surprise round before your turn, you have to do an emotion check to steel yourself. If your leader was neutralized in the previous round, again, you have to do an emotion check. And the last thing is part of the emotion phase is you can do rage, you can also do scare and cause fear. So rage means you build yourself up into a rage, which you then approach combat with a lot more vigor and you're less concerned for your own safety. So you build yourself up into this, enraged state, and you just want to weapons flying everywhere. So again, look at the different combat advantages related to rage, and there are also drawbacks to doing that as well. But they will cover that in future video. Scaring someone, that you walk into the room, rah, and you scare the people that are in there. Cause fear is basically you may have a natural ability, just the way that you're standing, the stuff you're wearing, etc. You can actually cause fear. Use your emotional knowledge to manipulate the enemy into fearing what you're doing. So that all takes place in the emotion phase. Then you can either perform a complete action, which means it takes your whole turn to do it, or you can perform one of 3 other things, which is movement, action, and quick action. So you can either do a movement and then perform an action and then do a quick action, or you can do an action, then a quick action, and then a movement. You can do movement, quick action, etc. However you want to use it in whatever order. Or you can do a complete action, which takes the entire turn. So you just do, it's an either or scenario. You get the 3 options or you get the 1 option. There's only one other thing to add to that, and that's non-actions. So there are things that are not really considered quick actions or actions. They are just non-actions. And they are thinking and recalling information, passive sensing, which is seeing something in the direction that you're facing, or hearing or smelling something that's within the area that you're in. So it's passively happening around you. You're not actually taking an action to do these things. Breathing and holding your breath. So that becomes important in terms of whether you're, if you're in a room with gas or you're underwater or something like that. It doesn't require an action to actually hold your breath. It's just something that is considered a non-action. Switching your weapon hand focus when you're using 2 weapons. So if you've got a sword in this hand and a club in this hand, and you want to attack with the club instead of the sword, that's a non-action. So you're switching, okay, now I'm going to attack with the club, or now I'm going to attack with the sword. It doesn't mean swapping hands. That is a quick action. So exchanging hands with your weapons is a quick action, but switching the focus hands is a non-action. So on the system reference sheet, under complete action, action, movement, and quick action, it actually lists the kind of things that you can do in that scenario. Now, this is also going to be listed in the core mechanics guide as well, so you can check that out when available, or through, if you're in Patreon, it is available now. And you can then, have a look at how you can utilize these in combat. So after you've performed one of those, either the 3 or the 1, you then have the XP and ammo phase. So the XP and ammo phase, if it's been your turn and you've been successful and it's above your current threshold, you get an experience towards a rank in whatever you've been doing. So if you're using physical checks, you get physical. If you were using a weapon and you succeeded, you get an XP point in that weapon, all building towards your ranks. So that happens at the end of your turn. Now at the end of the round, which is once everybody has had a turn, then you have the injuries and effects phase. So what this means is when you've actually caused an injury in your turn, that opponent is not actually injured until the end of the entire round. If you use a spell or you cause an effect like you're tripping them or ensnaring them or something like that, that effect happens at the end of the entire round. Now the reason for this is because it's simulating simultaneity. So everything's happening simultaneously. So the simultaneity means that in order to give everyone a chance, all the effects and the injuries happen at the end. So what this means is when you're in combat and you rush in and you hit the monster, and you're going first and the monster's going next turn in the round, that monster has not yet been injured, so they can still attack you back and cause injuries. Even though you have injured, you may have done the final blow, they still get one attack back at you until the end of the round. That's when the injury occurs. And that is merely to simulate that everything is happening all at the same time. So you're hitting each other at the same time effectively, even though you're out of turn order. So the initiative is really your nanoseconds before the other person, as the swirling mass of combat is happening. This is just basically breaking it down into simple ways to show each person doing their thing, and then at the end the effects happen. So once you've reached the end of the round, it circles back to the first person in the turn order again for a new round. Once again on here you've got the special actions and effect attacks. That gives you a list. It's not by means all of them, but it's the most important ones that you'll probably be using during your game. It depends on the genre you're using, what kind of weapons, etc. But that's the kind of stuff you can do in there. So have a look at that, and have a look at the core mechanics guide for any additional things that may be happening. Of course, as I said, this may change based on when you see this video. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to find out more about this game, check out 70system.com. And of course, there is the Facebook page and also Twitter. So thank you for joining me, and like button. I'll see you in the next one.